Japanese garden, the bamboos were still under wraps to protect them from frost. There are special displays like the garden designed to attract bees and the show of early bedding plants, which will change every 3 weeks throughout the season. Whilst Floriade itself is on a grand scale, there are plenty of practical ideas to steal and apply even for the tiniest of gardens. There's plenty too for the vegetable gardener who wants to pick up a few tips from the experts on growing under glass with an 86,000 square foot greenhouse. Children are well catered for too. For tiny budding gardeners, there's plenty to encourage them. But for those who think gardening's dull, there's a creche and adventure playground and a monorail borrowed from the Gateshead Festival. Now, for the real enthusiasts, several trips might be required, as the whole show will be changing dramatically through the seasons. Travel agents are providing special inclusive Floriade packages with prices to suit every pocket. We'll be visiting the show in June, during British Week, to bring viewers an up-to-date report on the British Garden, designed by James Wilson.
Clematis are, without doubt, our most popular flowering climber, and it's not difficult to see why. There are dozens of species and hundreds of hybrids in all sorts of shapes and sizes and colours, and don't they look good? This one is particularly interesting because this was the very first cross that is still surviving. It's called Clematis Eriostemon hendersonii, and it was first produced in 1820. But it came from two parents that came to this country in the 16th century. So we've been growing clematis here for quite some time. This is a straight species rather than a hybrid. It's Clematis tangutica, and I love it for these nodding yellow flowers which appear together with the fluffy white seed heads. Now, this is scrambling up the wall, which is the conventional way that most of us grow it. But one of the great advantages with going to a garden which is open to the public is that you can see all sorts of other ideas that you can take away and use in your own garden. Here at Burford House in Shropshire, there are all sorts of imaginative ways for using clematis. But this garden was created by John Treasure, and nobody knows more about using clematis than he does.
I rather like growing clematis through trees, especially trees that don't flower. For example, this conifer. Here we have a Montana variety, and it's a vigorous plant.
Not many of us have room for a tree this big.
No, there are a lot of other trees that can be used, and there are a lot of other species that can be used. Smaller trees, and not so vigorous species.
It's just a case of choosing the right variety.
Oh, I think so, yes. Yeah.
Clematis texensis, for example, is a native of Texas, and it's the only scarlet clematis in existence. This one is a hybrid of that called Sir Trevor Lawrence, and doesn't it look good growing through this Cotoneaster? Clematis viticella is another good variety like that, and this one is growing through a Philadelphus. Now, what you can do with both of these is to cut them hard back in November. You can pull all the rubbish out then so that it looks nice and neat, and it'll give the host plants a chance to thrive. But of course, as well as using them to add flowers to plants that aren't in flower, you can also plant a variety that flowers at the same time as the host plant, so